สีมรพบุรีรัมย์หัวปัญญา
อบรมสั่งสอนเพื่ออาทรต่อกันพัฒนาสร้างสรรค์เพื่อปวงไทยผู้มีความรู้ดียอมเป็นเด่นในหมู่ชนคติธรรมข้าล้นของมหาวิทยาลัยราชพฤกษ์ผูกพันร่มขวัญร่มใจม่วงเหลืองสดใสเปี่ยมศรัทธามหาวิทยาลัยราชภัฏบุรีรัมย์ความสุขความทรงจำยังงดงามล้ำเลอค่าด้วยใจมั่นคงรักดำรงสืบมาภูมิใจนักหนาชั่วฟ้าดินความรู้ดียอมเป็นเด่นในหมู่ชนคติธรรมข้าล้นของมหาวิทยาลัยราชพฤกษ์ผูกพันร่มขวัญร่มใจม่วงเหลืองสดใสเปี่ยมศรัทธามหาวิทยาลัยราชภัฏบุรีรัมย์ความสุขความทรงจำยังงดงามล้ำเลอค่าด้วยใจมั่นคงรักดำรงสืบมาภูมิใจนักหนาชั่วฟ้าดิน
เป็นสัญญาณให้ได้คิดถึงกันจดจำไม่ลืมความหลังครั้งเก่าม่วงเหลืองอบเราสารใจสร้างฝันต้นโพยังยืนยิ้มรับสัมพันธ์
จากมาแสนไกลตั้งใจศึกษาเพื่อวันข้างหน้าจะเอาความรู้ไปให้คนทางบ้านเราต่อไปไม่อายใครเขาให้บ้านเราพัฒนามาเป็นที่หนึ่งสุขใจได้มีเพื่อนดีมากลายอาจารย์ผู้ใหญ่ช่วยสั่งสอนทราบซึ้งจึงเป็นแรงช่วยผลักดันให้ฉันได้ก้าวไปถึงฝั่งฝันที่ฉันมุ่งหวังดังใจต้องการเป็นความภาคภูมิจากรั้วม่วงเหลืองก้าวสู่ความรุ่งเรืองทั่วกันดังคูต้นโตสู้แดดฝนไม่หวั่นออกดอกช่อนั้นแบ่งบานงามตาจากวันนี้ไปได้นำความรู้สู่ยังท้องถิ่นบ้านเราพัฒนานำพาด้วยคุณธรรมน้อมนำสู่การศึกษา10 นิ้วก้มลงวันทาสถาบัน
ทดสอบทีมงานไอทีครับยังมีเสียงซ่าอยู่นะครับเสียงลำโพงจะซ่านิดนึงครับลองปรับเช็คสายนิดนึงครับดีขึ้นครับดีขึ้นละหายแล้วครับลองเปิดเพลงใหม่ดูครับโอเคครับเรียบร้อยครับ
เป็นความภาคภูมิจากรั้วม่วงเหลืองก้าวสู่ความรุ่งเรืองทั่วกันดังคูต้นโตสู้แดดฝนไม่หวั่นออกดอกช่อนั้นแบ่งบานงามตาจากวันนี้ไปได้นำความรู้สู่ยังท้องถิ่นบ้านเราพัฒนานำพาด้วยคุณธรรมน้อมนำสู่การศึกษา10 นิ้วก้มลงวันทาสถาบันมีน้ำงามราชพฤกษารวมความรักสามัคคีนิรันดร์การบนรากฐานความเป็นเพื่อนร่วมสถาบันสัญญาใจชายหญิงเป็นมิตรสัญญาจิตในวัยเรียนเพี
สังคมดีสุขใจสุขนี้มีผู้ค่ามีสัญญาที่มุ่งเน้นเป็นเกียรติเป็นสีรวมความคิดเพื่อสรรสร้างโดยเสรีบนวิธีความเรื่องรุ่งพดุงธรรมเพื่อประกาศเกียรติภูมิลูกม่วงเหลืองเพื่อประเทืองถิ่นอีสานชื่นเย็นช่ำทุ่มความรู้ทุ่มความรักมาน้อมนำเพื่อถิ่นฐานบุรีรัมย์เรืองรอง
And my name is Silapapa Ratana Longkan. We are PhD students in English language teaching under the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Buriram Ratchapat University. First of all, I would like to tell you all about our conference background, the ICON ELT 2022. In 2021, the PhD in English language teaching program under the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Buriram Ratchapat University, has been developed with the aim to develop students' specialization in English language teaching, to equip them with the full potential in conducting research and creating innovation in English language teaching, and to build their ability for creating a new body of knowledge in ELT and the effective application of it. In order to fulfill this aim, the ICON ELT 2022, or the first international conference on English language teaching, is held with the theme, World Englishes with English Language Teaching in the Digital Age. This ICON ELT 2022 will open a platform for researchers, academics, and staff to present academic and research work relevant to ELT, focuses on world Englishes in a digital age. This forum will also bring together international leading experts on world Englishes to discuss the influence of the variety of Englishes, the standard Englishes, and its implication of English language teaching.
First, offering the conference in complete
Excuse me พอสมนเสียงเบามากครับไม่ได้ยินเลยจากทางไกล
Second, to be a platform for researchers, scholars, lecturers, and students, both inside the country and abroad, to exchange knowledge and experiences, and also to present their quality academic and research work in ELT and world Englishes.
Next, I would like to tell you all about our co-hosted. We are co-hosted by 4 distinctive institutions. The first co-host is Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. Our second co-host is Mahasarakham University, Thailand. Our third co-host is Wan Lang University, Vietnam. And our fourth co-host is Yangon University of Foreign Language from Myanmar.
Yes, and about the journal for this conference, it's very good news to realize that the editorial board of Theory and Practice in Language Studies, under Academy Publisher, Finland, officially accepted to publish a special issue for the ICON ELT 2022, the first international conference on English language teaching. And about 15 excellent papers will be considerably selected from the manuscripts presented at this conference in this special issue as well.
It is highly hoped that some of these excellent papers from Thailand, China, Myanmar, and many other countries will be selected to get published in the index journal. More importantly, 15 best manuscripts will be certainly published in a special issue of Theory and Practice in Language Studies.
Okay, next. And for this conference, it's a great honor to invite well-known scholars, keynote speakers, and featured speakers. Especially for the keynote speaker for this conference, we are privileged to invite Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University, United States of America. And there are 6 featured speakers and 3 featured speakers will be in this conference at Ramrajapat University. Assistant Professor Dr. Kornvika Punpon from Khon Kaen University, Thailand. Assistant Professor Dr. Apisak Sukying from Mahasarakam University, Thailand. Dr. Eric Mbele from Mahasarakam University, Thailand.
And also we have 3 featured speakers will deliver their speech online. The first featured speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Anshali Wannalak from Suratnari University of Technology. Our second online featured speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Pham Vu Phi Ho from Van Lang University, Vietnam. Our third featured speaker in the online session is Professor Nidhi Lay from Ministry of Education, Myanmar. And our last online featured speaker is Professor Dr. Ji Chuan, Rector of the Yangon University of Foreign Language, Yangon, Myanmar.
And for the afternoon session, we have the featured speaker, or we have the commentators for the afternoon session as well. There are scholars from Ramrajapat University for this conference. Associate Professor Dr. Akarapon Nermaihom from Ramrajapat University, Thailand. Assistant Professor Dr. Navamin Prachanan from Ramrajapat University. Assistant Professor Dr. Surachai Piyanukul from Ramrajapat University. Assistant Professor Dr. Shukiat Jarat from Ramrajapat University. Assistant Professor Dr. Kampirapap Intanu and Assistant Professor Supagit Puwong from Ramrajapat University, Thailand.
Yes, and next I would like to inform everyone the conference program. At 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the registration in front of Puttalaksa Meeting Hall on the 3rd floor of this building. And at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., we will have the opening ceremony. But the first will be opening the BRU video presentation, followed by the PhD in ELT program introductions. And also we will start our opening ceremony by the chair of our ceremony, Associate Professor Malini Jutthopama, and a reporting speech by Associate Professor Dr. Akarapon Nermaihom, our Dean from Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. He will be delivering the introduction of this conference, invited the speakers, and also talks about the co-hosts and the distinguished guests, and also deliver a thank you message. At 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we will have the keynote address on global Englishes in the era of global literacy challenges and opportunity and strategies by our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University, USA. And at 12 to 1 p.m., we will all have lunch and we all come back at 1 p.m. We will have the parallel sessions in the afternoon. There will be feature speech, oral presentation, and online presentation, and also poster presentation in the afternoon. So there will also be a poster presentation in front of this room.
Yes, and it's a great honor to have special guests to join the conference today as well. So the first guest for this conference, Associate Professor Malini Jutopama, the president of Viram Rajapat University, and she is coming to this conference here as the president for opening ceremony. Assistant Professor Dr. Namwin Prashanan, the Vice President of International Affairs, Viram Rajapat University, and also PhD in the ELT Curriculum Committee. Associate Professor Dr. Narimon Somkuna, Dean, Graduate School, Viram Rajapat University. Associate Professor Dr. Akrapon Nirmaihom, Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Viram Rajapat University, and Chair of PhD in the ELT program. Assistant Professor Dr. Surushai Piyanukul, PhD in the ELT Curriculum Committee. Assistant Professor Dr. Shukiat Jarat, Head of Master of Education in English Language Teaching. Assistant Professor Dr. Kampirapap Intanu, PhD Curriculum Committee.
Yes, next I would like to talk about the conference bag. Inside our beautiful Thai traditional conference bag, there are evaluation form, abstract books, certificate of participation, receipts, snacks and drinks, also paper and pen for taking notes. And also, it will be very appreciated if you can scan our QR code for the evaluation form. And also for the participant, for the presenter, the certificate will be given after the presentation in the afternoon sessions.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for this morning, I would like everyone to introduce yourself, okay, to introduce yourself
Yes.
and to talk with the person next to you for 2 minutes, please.
Yes, I think we come from
Different
institutions. I think it's a good chance for us to meet
Yes.
and have a cooperation in
Yes.
the future, or
Please
maybe
introduce yourself.
Yes.
Tell your
name,
tell your name and
your
where you're from.
institutions.
What are you doing? Yes.
yeah, and your research interest.
Interest,
Maybe
right.
you can have a research cooperation in the future.
Right. 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
But if you come from the same institute
Yes.
and you know each other very well already, so you can like
Next
talk to the people
that you don't
yeah
know yet.
next in front of you or
Yeah, in the back,
the back.
behind you.
Yes. 2 minutes, please.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for your introduction to the other scholars. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ICON ELT 2022 again at Viram Rajapat University, and welcome the presenters and participants who participate online from Myanmar, Vietnam, and China, India as well. Yes, welcome to the conference. And next, we would like to present Viram Rajapat University video presentation to introduce Viram Rajapat University to you all to better understand. Yes.
The Great Education Institute in Northeastern. For local development is the great philosophy. Rajabhat means valuable people, people of the king. Viraram is the great Rajabhat University. Viraram Rajabhat University is the Institute for Local Development. is the philosophy which the B.R.U. HUSOC have firmly used as the code of practice over the past 40 years, since the was first established as Buriram Teachers College in October 1971. It was mainly set up for producing teachers and developing educational personnel. In 1992, His Majesty the King granted royal permission for every teachers college to be titled as Rajabhat Institute. And when Rajabhat Institute Act 1995 was enacted by the government, the Buriram Teachers College was changed to Rajabhat Institute Buriram. Because of this act, Rajabhat Institute Buriram expanded a wide range of education by opening various programs both undergraduate and graduate level. In 2004, the Rajabhat Institute Act was replaced by Rajabhat University Act 2004. So Buriram Rajabhat University was proclaimed as a juristic person. Because of this status, the university performed flexible missions in educational administration. It is responsible for establishing bodies of knowledge and strengthening the local community. Over the past 40 years, Buriram Rajabhat University has aimed to produce qualified graduates with moral character for establishing community, being in Buriram province through the missions as follows. 1. To produce high-quality graduates and create educational opportunity implemented under acceptable academic and professional standards. 2. To conduct research, establish bodies of knowledge and create research networks. 3. To provide academic services, transfer technology, and upgrade and strengthen the community. 4. To preserve arts and cultural heritage and promote and inherit local wisdom. 5. To produce and develop high-quality teachers and educational personnel. 6. To promote and continue royal projects, support and participate in managing national resources and environment in the local community. Buriram Rajabhat University is situated on a plot of land covering 297 rai, 1 mek, and 27 square wa, about 475,604 square meters. It is located in Buriram downtown. It is a local university, which was developed respectively. There are many programs, and it is a fully equipped education institute with instructional media. Buriram Rajabhat University is comprised of 7 faculties. Faculty of Education, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Faculty of Science, Faculty of Management Science, Faculty of Agricultural Technology, Faculty of Industrial Technology, and Graduate School. Buriram Rajabhat University offers more than 60 fields of undergraduate programs, graduate programs, and doctoral programs to people in general. All curricula offered by the BRU are certified to be in line with the Thai Qualification Framework, or TQF, set by the Office of Higher Education Commission. The educational administration of all curricula is conducted by focusing on the needs of the locals and labor markets. The BRU aims to produce high quality with professional skills as in the university. Motto, Sumato, Shania Shudo Huothi. A person who good is the best of all people. Besides these faculties, there are other facilities enhancing the efficiency of the BRU. Educational Office of the President, Office of Academic Promotion and Office of Academic Resource and Information Technology, Office of Arts and Cultures, and Research and Development Institute. In terms of potentiality, there are about 700 personnel. Over 400 personnel from this figure are qualified lecturers, lecturers with academic titles, and lecturers with doctoral degrees, including guest lecturers who are knowledgeable and skillful in specific fields to teach our students. Buriram Rajabhat University places our emphasis on learning resources to help students developing themselves to reach their full potential by having important learning resources. Sciences and Applied Sciences Center, ASEAN Studies Center, Lower Northeastern Cultural Center, Teacher Development Center, Kakam Higher Education Service Center, and Nong Kavaram Higher Education Service Center. The readiness in terms of human resources and learning resources will facilitate the students to spend their university life in learning and practicing behind purple-yellow fence of Buriram Rajabhat University in order to fully develop their academic knowledge plus their work skills and to be able to really put their knowledge into practice.
Buriram Rajabhat University is the Institute for Local Development. The uniqueness of BRU is to place great importance on educational management with international standards. The graduates of BRU are equipped with good thought, knowledge, morals, and leadership in community development. BRU is a leading university in the northeast of Thailand with the goals for not only local development, but also for international competitions. We are ready to enter ASEAN and international communities.
From Buriram Teachers College, Rajabhat Institute Buriram, and now Buriram Rajabhat, the university always keeps promises with the society and the locals in keeping academic excellence, instilling good conscience, knowledge, and moral into the BRU students, and leading local communities to have the sustainable well-being as well as having a commitment to develop itself to become a leading university of northeastern region of Thailand until it can compete in ASEAN and international competitions.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is the video presentation to introduce Buriram Rajabhat University. Thank you very much for your watching. Thank you. And okay, good morning and welcome to the ICON ELT 2022. Again, this is the first international conference on English language teaching on the theme World English in English language teaching in the digital age. Okay, by Buriram Rajabhat University. PhD in ELT program, okay, under the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. And also we have co-hosts from other institutes as well. Yes.
Yes, before we begin, may I go over the background information of our conference again, please? Our conference is hosted by the PhD in ELT program under the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences with the aim to develop students' specialization in English language teaching to equip them with full potential for conducting research and creating innovation in English language teaching. and to build the ability for creating new body of knowledge in ELT. In order to fulfill this aim, the ICON ELT 2022, or the first international conference on English language teaching, is held with the theme World Englishes in English Language Teaching in the Digital Age. This ICON ELT 2022 will open a platform for researchers, academics, and scholars to present academic and research work relevant to ELT, focusing on world Englishes in a digital age. This forum will also bring together international leading experts on world Englishes to discuss the influence of the variety of English, the standard English, and its implication on English language teaching.
Yes, and for the conference, there are many purposes. Okay, the first one, to publicize research and innovative works on English language teaching, covering the conference theme and sub-themes such as teaching English as a foreign language, teaching of English to speakers of other languages, English as a lingua franca, English as an international language, world Englishes, and English as a global language. Second purpose, to be a platform for researchers, scholars, lecturers, and students, both inside the country and abroad, to exchange knowledge and experiences, and also to present their quality academic and research work in English language teaching and world Englishes.
Yes, and we have 4 distinguished co-host institutions. The first is Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. Our second co-host is Mahasarakam University, Thailand. And our third co-host is from Vietnam, Van Lang University. And our fourth co-host is from Myanmar, Yangon University of Foreign Language.
Yes, and it's a very good news to realize that the editorial board of Theory and Practice in Language Studies under Academy Publisher, Finland officially accepted to publish a special issue for the ICON ELT 2022. And about 15 excellent papers will be considerably selected from the manuscript presented at the ICON ELT to get published in this special issue as well.
Yes, it is highly hoped that some of these excellent papers from Thailand, China, Myanmar, and many other countries select to get published in the index journal. More importantly, the 15 best manuscripts will be certainly published in the special issue, Theory and Practice in Language Studies.
And it's a great honor to invite well-known keynote speakers and featured speakers to this conference. For our keynote speaker, for ICON ELT conference is Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University, United States of America. And there are 6 featured speakers and 3 featured speakers will be here at BRU today. Assistant Professor Dr. Kornvipa Punpon from Khon University, Thailand. Assistant Professor Dr. Apisak Sukying from Mahasarakam University, Thailand. Dr. Eric Ambele from Mahasarakam University, Thailand.
Yes, and there are 3 featured speakers that will deliver their speech online. Our first is Associate Professor Dr. Anchali Wannalak from Suratnari University of Thailand, and also Associate Professor Dr. Pham Vu Viho from Van Lang University, Vietnam, and also Professor Dr. Nini Lay from Ministry of Education, Myanmar. And our last featured speaker that will speak online is Professor Dr. Ji Schwan, Rector of Yangon University of Foreign Language, Myanmar.
And also, it's our privilege to invite Professor from Buriram Ratchapat University to be the commentators for our conference as well in the afternoon session. Yes, Associate Professor Dr. Akarapon Nirmai Hom, Dean of Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Buriram Ratchapat University. Assistant Professor Dr. Nomin Prachanan from the Vice President of International Affairs from Buriram Ratchapat University. Assistant Professor Dr. Surashai Piyanukul, the PhD in ELT Curriculum Committee from Buriram Ratchapat University. Assistant Professor Dr. Shukiat Jarat, the PhD in ELT Curriculum Committee and the head of English education, master degree, yes, from Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. Assistant Professor Dr. Kampirapat Intanu, and Assistant Professor Supakit Puwong, the Associate Dean from Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. Yeah, and it's our honor to invite them to be our commentator as well.
Yes, may I tell everyone the conference program? At 8 to 9 will be the registration in front of Puttaraksa Meeting Hall, which is on the 3rd floor of this building. And at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., it will be the opening ceremony. We will start with the BRU video presentation and also followed by the introductions of PhD in ELT program. There will also be the opening ceremony by Associate Professor Malini Juthopama, President of Buriram Ratchapat University, and also a recording speech by our Dean, Associate Professor Dr. Akrapon Nirmaihom, Dean of Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. He will be delivering the introduction of the conference, co-hosted, invited speaker, and distinguished guests, and he will also deliver the thank you speech. At 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we will have the keynote address by Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University. His keynote speech will be on global Englishes in the era of global literacy challenges, opportunity, and strategies. At 12 to 1 p.m., we will all have lunch, and at 1 p.m. we'll all come back and we'll have the parallel sessions, which will be the poster presentation, oral presentation, online presentation, and also feature speech by our invited speakers.
And it's a great honor to have special guests with us today. Okay. First, we have Associate Professor Malini Juthopama, the President of Buriram Ratchapat University, and she is the President of the opening ceremony as well. Second, Assistant Professor Dr. Namwin Prashanan, the Vice President of International Affairs, Buriram Ratchapat University, and PhD in ELT Curriculum Committee. Third, Associate Professor Dr. Naramon Songpuna, Dean Graduate School, Buriram Ratchapat University. Associate Professor Dr. Akrapon Nirmaihom, Dean Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand, and Chair of PhD in ELT program.
Inside our beautiful Thai traditional conference bag, there is an evaluation form, abstract books, certificate of participations, receipt, snacks and drinks, and also pen and papers for taking notes. And for all the presenters, you all will receive the certificate after the presentation in the afternoon sessions.
Ladies and gentlemen, now is an auspicious time. May I call upon Associate Professor Malini Juthopama, the President of Buriram Ratchapat University, on the stage, please. And may I invite Associate Professor Dr. Akrapon Nirmaihom, Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand, to deliver a reported speech to the President. And may I call upon Associate Professor Malini Juthopama, the President of Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand, to deliver an opening speech, Icon ELT 2022, the first international conference on English language teaching, please.
Associate Professor Malini Juthopama, President of Buriram Ratchapat University, On behalf of the conference organizing committee, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Madam President for presiding over the first international conference on English language teaching, or ICON ELT 2022. The opening speech delivered by you is also very much appreciated. A successful English language teaching and learning under a pragmatic and humanistic approach can be described via the word English's perspectives. And due to the tremendous technological progress in the digital age, the scenario of English teaching techniques is entirely changes. Consequently, the teachers of 21st century should share traditional concepts and techniques of classroom teaching and should adopt the recent and innovative teaching techniques using different social media. In 2021, the PhD program in ELT under the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Buriram Rajapat University, has been developed with the aims to equip PhD students with full potential for conducting research and creating innovation in English language teaching, and also to build their ability for creating a new body of knowledge, ELT. In order to fulfill these aims, the ICON ELT 2022, or the first international conference on English language teaching, is organized with the theme on the Englishes in English language teaching in the digital age. This ICON ELT 2022 will open a platform for researchers, academics, and scholars to present academic and research works relevant to ELT, focusing on English in a digital age. The forums will also bring together the national leading experts on world Englishes to discuss the influence of English balance on standard Englishes and its implication on English language teaching. Besides the PhD program as the conference main host, the BRU's academic partners from both Thailand and overseas have also been officially invited to co-host the symposium as the following: Mahasarakham University, Thailand; Yangon University of Foreign Languages, Myanmar; and Van Lang University, Vietnam. At this academic event, it's also very honor for us to have distinguished keynote speakers, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University, USA, who is going to deliver a keynote address on a trendy topic, global Englishes in the era of global literacy, challenges, opportunity, and strategies. Moreover, we also have with us the well-known featured speakers as follows: Professor Nini Lai from Myanmar, Associate Professor Dr. Anjali Wannalak from Surat Nari University of Technology, Dr. Eric M. Bere from Mahasarakham University, Assistant Professor Dr. Kondipa Poonpon from Khon Kaen University, Assistant Professor Dr. Apisak Sukying from Mahasarakham University, Associate Professor Dr. Phiem Vu Phi Po from Van Lang University, Vietnam, and Professor Dr. Khayi Chwin, Rectors of Yangon University of Foreign Languages, Myanmar. In order to avoid the COVID-19 cluster and to strictly follow the preventive measures of coronavirus, not only on-site session is held at BRU, but also the virtual conference is carried out via Zoom meeting. There are 25-minute scripts from different countries such as Thailand, Vietnam, Myanmar, and China, etc. Moreover, about 100 participants from both Thailand and overseas eagerly taking part in this first ever symposium on ELT. At this auspicious moment, I would like to call upon Associate Professor Malini Yutthopama, President of Buriram Rajapat University, to deliver an opening speech and also declare the ICON ELT 2022 officially open, please.
Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda, Professor Dr. Kayi Chuin, Professor Nini Rai, featured speakers, scholars, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is very honor for me to be officially invited by the conference organizing committee to preside over the English symposium and deliver an opening speech today. I'm as the president of Buriram Ratchapat University, very pleased to warmly welcome both Thai and foreign co-hosts, researchers, and scholars to the ICON ELT 2022. It's my personal appreciation to realize that this international conference on ELT is organized for the first time by the PhD program in ELT under the Faculty of Humanities and Social Science. PRU, moreover, the other three well-known institutes have also been invited to be the co-host of this academic event. I'm certain that this conference will contribute to the application of academic and research works on world English in English language teaching in the digital age. Moreover, this symposium will promote and strengthen academic collaboration between BRU and academic partners around the world. On behalf of Buriram Ratchapat University, I want to welcome co-hosts, experts, researchers, scholars, lecturers, graduate students, and participants to this conference. Last but not least, I would like to express my sincere thanks to a keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda, featured speaker, communicators, and scholars from different universities, both in Thailand and overseas, for their academic support and contribution. I wish this international conference successful and academically useful for everyone. At this appreciated moment, I would like to declare the ICON ELT 2022. Thank you very much. สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Malini Jutopama, the President of Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand, for presiding over the conference.
And next, may I invite Associate Professor Dr. Akrapon Nirmai-Hom.
Next, may I invite Associate Professor Malini Jutopama, the President of Buriram Ratchapat University, on the stage again, please. And on this occasion, may I invite Assistant Professor Dr. Navamin Prachanan on behalf of the ICON ELT 2022 Organizing Committee and the Vice President of International Affairs, Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand, to present a token of appreciation to the President of Buriram Ratchapat University, please. Yes. Thank you very much, the President. The President, please stay on the stage. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the Vice President, Assistant Professor Dr. Navin Prachanan.
Next, may I invite the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University, USA, on the stage, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda. Next, may I invite the featured speaker, Assistant Professor Dr. Konvika Punpon from Khon Kaen University, Thailand, on the stage, please. Yes, thank you very much, Assistant Professor Dr. Konvika Punpon.
Yes, and next, may I invite the featured speaker, Assistant Professor Dr. HUSOC-BRU from Mahasarakham University, Thailand, on the stage, please. Thank you so much, Assistant Professor Dr. HUSOC-BRU.
Next, may I invite the featured speaker, Dr. Eric Mbele from Mahasarakham University, Thailand, on the stage, please. Thank you very much, Associate Professor Malini Jutopama, the President of Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. And thank you, the keynote speaker and all featured speaker. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, and next, we would like to present our PhD in English language program video presentation to introduce the PhD in ELT to you all.
Very pleased to warmly welcome all candidates from both Thailand and overseas to pursue a PhD in ELT at Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. At BAU, I grant volunteer if that your ultimate goal of being a teaching master of advanced English language can be fulfilled. I highly want to have you as energetic PhD student majoring in ELT at our university soon. Thank you so much. สวัสดีค่ะ
Invited to be a member of our family PhD program in English language teaching under the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. We run the University.
I strongly believe that the ELT curriculum under the PhD program offers me a lot of appropriate methodologies and innovation in teaching the advanced English language. Due to this practical curriculum, it's very easy for me to identify theories, concepts, approaches, methods, and techniques of ELT. Having taken different courses under this ELT curriculum, I'm now very confident to create the materials and innovations relevant to ELT.
All of the Thai professors teaching at BRU are so knowledgeable and competent that students can gain knowledge in their fields, which makes it possible to guide them through understanding the research process. Moreover, professors continue to support and encourage students to show their potential to the fullest extent by giving perfect pitch of advice and wise way to solve problems or remove obstacles during their study for success. This is the reason why we are privileged to choose BRU to the purchase our degrees, and also because the Thai professors are high and value with devoted sacrifice and education teaches their students. And Professor Dr. Many more professors officially invited different training right at BRU campus.
It's true that friendship is a lovely relation and good relationship will support us no matter what the circumstances. The relationship of Thai and Myanmar students is unique. We care for one another. We share positive views and feelings. We learn together happily and collaborate, help mutually. We are very happy to learn PhD in ELT program at Harvard University, Thailand. We are now waiting for new friends from other nations. Please come and join us.
Graduate school, at University, set up smart classroom with home equipment. Students can study in very well prepared and academic environment. Graduate school also provide a library with various texts, books, research, so students can retrieve information and research conveniently. Besides, ELT program, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences prepares the HUSOC Learning Resources Center, where students can study, work, or have meeting for a group discussion.
And now we are at the IT Mall. The IT Mall provides free Wi-Fi and high-speed internet services for everyone studying at BRU.
I certainly guarantee you that the PhD student in ELT at University will be provided with the best technology and support. You will also have a great opportunity to study with both Thai and international visiting professors who are expert in English teaching, pedagogy, research, methodologies, and other relevant disciplines. This is the right university and it's your good chance to make the right decision to pursue a PhD degree in ELT within a time frame of 3 years. Only welcome all of you to study a PhD in ELT provided by Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Rajabet University.
Thank you very much for watching our PhD program. And we are now opening our second batch of the PhD in ELT at BRU. If anyone is interested, you are all welcome to apply to our PhD program in ELT.
ท่านรองบินเชิญท่านในการถ่ายรูปอันนี้นิดนึงขอ5 นาทีในการครับ please have good photo together with us ท่านในการรีบนิดหนึ่งเนาะนิดหนึ่งใช่ไหมครับขอถ่ายรูปก่อนนะครับ
Okay, next is our photo sessions. May I invite the BRU president, administrators, keynote speakers, and feature speaker in front to take group photo, please. Okay, and one more in the back, please. Thank you. So everybody in the back, please smile. Thank you very much. Next, may I invite Associate Professor Dr. Akharapol Neermaihom, Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand, to officially introduce the conference, co-host, invited speakers, distinguished guests, and deliver a thankful message, please.
Sawadee Very good morning once again, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to take a good opportunity to introduce to you all our co-hosts and honorable guests. First co-host, I would like to introduce to you from ELT program, Mahasarakam University, Assistant Professor Dr. HUSOC-BRU. This is the first co-host. And the second co-host online, I guess, from Vanalang University, the representative of the university, Associate Professor Dr. Pham Vu Phi Ho. I think he is alive with us now. And the last co-host is Yang Khon University of Foreign Languages, Myanmar, Professor Dr. Kayi Shwin. He also be with us online. And at this good moment, I also would like to humbly introduce to you all our keynote speaker and feature speakers as the following. Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda, our keynote speaker. And online, Professor Dr. Nini Lai from Myanmar. He's over there. She's a very good friend of our president. And Associate Professor Dr. Anjali Wanarak from Suratnagari University of Technology. She is also online with us. Assistant Professor Dr. Pisak Sukying once again as our featured speakers. Assistant Professor Dr. Kondipa Poonpon, thank you so much from Khon Kaen University. And the last featured speaker is Dr. Eric Ambere from Mahasarakam University. Last but not least, I, on behalf of the organizing committee, would like to express my sincere thanks to all parties who have paid a key role to make this icon ELT 2022 possible and successful. First and foremost, our President, BRU President, Associate Professor Malini Yuthopama, for her long-lasting support. And at this time, I would like to make a small announcement that our BRU annually organized the international conference, so-called BRIC Festival, and also NIRC, that is National International on Research Conference. This time, we are going to organize big event at our BU campus on 14, 15, 16 February. So please bear in mind, and you are welcome to attend this big festival, that's BRIC Festival and NIRC conference. All right, and next I would like to sincerely thank our keynote speaker, once again, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda. Thank you so much for your invaluable time with us. Our featured speaker as well, including commentators who are coming to help us academically. And of course, all participants from different universities in both Thailand and overseas for their academic contribution. Please enjoy staying at our BU campus and be Buriram, a city of sport. It is highly hoped that we are going to have you all once again at BRU University. Please stay healthy and be safe from COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very so much. ขอบพระคุณและสวัสดีครับ
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Akrapon Nirmaihom, Dean Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Thailand, Abiram Rajapat University, Thailand, for the official introduction and thankful speech for the President, administrators, conference co-hosts, keynote speaker, featured speaker, and distinguished guests. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a very good time to begin the first session of our conference. It's a great honor to invite Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University, USA, to be a keynote speaker for this ICON ELT 2022 conference. This session will be divided into two parts. The first part is the keynote speech for 1 hour and 45 minutes. And the second part, we will have 15 minutes for Q&A session at the end of his speech. And online participants can also raise questions in the chat box, and our staff will collect the questions for Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda to answer.
Before we begin, may I introduce our keynote speaker first. Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda is a professor of English and a director of second language writing at Arizona State University, where he worked closely with doctoral students specializing in second language writing from various disciplinary perspectives. Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda is the founding chair of the Symposium on Second Language Writing and series editor of the Polar Press series on second language writing. He is a former president of the American Association for Applied Linguistics. He also served as the founding chair of the Conference on College Composition and Communication Committees on Second Language Writing and the chair of the non-native English speaker in TESOL caucus. Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda has published widely on various topics on language, writing, and professional development in applied linguistics and composition and TESOLs. And he has received many of prestigious rewards on his publication. He has been invited to present keynotes and plenary talks as well as lectures and workshops in various countries and all regions around the world.
And today, the title for his keynote address is Global Englishes in the Era of Global Literacy, Challenges, Opportunities, and Strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big applause to welcome Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda. Please, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for this moment on the schedule, we will have 10 minutes breaks. Yeah, so we will set this for a few minutes and we have 10 minutes breaks, and the coffee are provided outside and snacks as well. Yes. ขออนุญาตเบรกก่อน10 นาทีนะครับ
ทีมงานตัดเข้าสู่เพลงเลยครับ ทีมงานเปิดไมโครโฟนด้วยครับ เปิดไมค์ที่ซูมหน่อยฮะ
ทรงพระเจริ
ระบือด้วยศาสตร์ศิลป์ราชพฤกษ์เรื่องระบินผู้ทินตำรามรพผู้รีรัมนำความรู้นำความก้าวหน้าสร้างบัณฑิตพัฒนาสังคมไทย
รุ่งสำนึกรักแผ่นดินถิ่นอีสานศึกษาวิชาการเรียนผ่านสดใสมีลำธารและภูเขามีลำนองธรรมชาติเบิกใหม่ชื่นเย็นใจในการเรียนและการสอน
มหาวิทยาลัยราชภัฏบุรีรัมย์พระนามก็พิมพ์ทรงธรรมพระราชทานพระราชกรเป็นตราสัญลักษณ์จำรูนเนื้อคูณพักดีภูทรน้อมเกล้าสืบสานคำสอนรู้รักสามัคคี เรียกร้องในทุกที่เพื่อศักดิ์ศรีมรภาบุรีรัมย์ มหาวิทยาลัยราชภัฏบุรีรัมย์พระนามหัวหินทรงธรรมพระราชทานพระลัญจกรเป็นการสัญลักษณ์จำรูนเพื่อทูลพักดีผู้ชรน้อมเกล้าสืบสานคำสอนรู้รักสามัคคีมันคงความรักชาติศาสนามันคงธรรมจัญญาบัณฑิตที่ดีภูมิปัญญาลูกห่วงเหลืองร้องเรื่องรองในทุกที่เพื่อศักดิ์ศรีมรภาบุรีรัมย์ภูมิปัญญาลูกห่วงเหลืองร้องเรื่องรองในทุกที่เพื่อศักดิ์ศรีมรภาบุรีรัมย์
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning again, and welcome to the Icon ELT 2022 again. And okay, after you finish the break, please come back to the seat, and we will begin this first session of the conference. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, now is a very good time to begin the first session of our conference. And it's a great honor to invite Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University, United States of America, to be a keynote speaker for this Icon ELT 2022 conference. And today, the title of his keynote address is Global Englishes in the Era of Global Literacy, Challenges, Opportunities, and Strategies. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big applause to welcome Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda. Please, Professor.
People are still taking some photos in the back. Good morning. Sawadee krap. It's nice to be back in Thailand and also in Buriram. The last 2 years has been a real challenge for me and for everyone. Socially, economically, emotionally, it's been a tough period of time. And I'm really happy to be back here because Buriram Rajapat University has been innovating while everyone is resting and being depressed, creating a new PhD program and organizing many online events. And finally, we get to come together partially in person so we can see each other and share ideas. So I want to start by congratulating Buriram Rajapat University for putting together the first international conference on English language teaching. And also I want to thank Ajahn Ek and the organizing committee and the president for inviting me to this important event. Many people have asked me this question, so I'm going to get this out of the way. I have been to Buriram before. I was here 5 years ago, 2017. I think it was in July on a hot summer day. And when I came here, I acquired this Buriram t-shirt. I'm not wearing it right now. Buriram shirt, and that became one of my favorite travel shirts. So I was wearing it everywhere, and people kept saying, Buriram, have you been there? That was a great conversation starter as well. So I gained a lot more from that shirt than what I would normally get from a nice piece of shirt. And 2022, I'm back at the same place in the same shirt, and I'm still smiling. So that's a good thing, right? And today, I'm going to present what I might describe as a non-argumentative academic talk. Now, as academic, our job is to argue. Our job is to make claims that are either unheard of or that challenges conventional wisdom or that addresses the unknown. And then do our best to use our research, use our reflections, insights to fill those gaps, to support those claims. And that's what I have been doing all along throughout my academic career. Today, I'm not going to do that. I am going to declare world Englishes and global literacy as givens. We can take them for granted. We should, if we haven't already. Well, first, before I get into the details, I want to share some of my personal stories. I'm here on vacation. You can tell, right? I'm dressed casually. I almost came in my sandals, but I persuaded myself against it. And last week, I went to Koh Tao and I was diving. And as an academic, one of the occupational hazards is that you can never turn off your academic mind. So I was taking pictures of a batfish and I was noticing its features. They were so pretty and they came pretty close to me. So I was really happy. And then at another dive site, I noticed that, oh, it's the same one? No, these are different ones, right? Maybe it's the same one. There were some differences. They look similar, but they have some distinct features. And guess what I was thinking about while I was looking at these batfish? British and American English and Australian, Canadian Englishes. They have many shared features, but they also have some distinct features as well. But you can still recognize them as the same language. And you can, if you mix them, you may not even notice the differences unless you're paying attention. But the English language started to spread worldwide, traveling through the ocean, and it became much more diverse, not just one or two differences, but a lot of different fishes swimming together, interacting with each other using different varieties of English. And as academics, we have to argue every step of the way to make claims about the status of the English language, how it changes, the nature of its changes, and what it means. But in popular discourses, lay people's conversations about language, They don't care about arguments. Their perception is shaped by what they observe around them and what other people are talking about. And in some ways, academics are more stubborn. We tend to resist. We tend to demand evidence. Where is research? Where is evidence? Where is the argument? But most people, if they hear something that sounds reasonable, they just accept it. That's how popular opinions are shaped, and then how their ideas are spread. Now, looking at how our academic consciousness has evolved, I would describe the 1980s as the beginning of world Englishes. That's when HUSOC-BRU came up with the idea of world Englishes and the concentric circles of Englishes: inner circle, outer circle, and expanding circle context. And these were historical developments, and also they corresponded with the geographic spread of the English language. And he and others who latched onto the world notion of world Englishes were trying to raise the awareness. But whenever there's a new idea, there's also resistance. People argue back. But, are they really different? Are they really legitimate? And in the 1980s, some people wanted to spread the idea of world Englishes among English language teachers. And they were met with strong resistance because English teachers were trained to teach proper English. And proper English, to many of them, meant either British or American English. Never mind Canadian English or Australian English, right? Or New Zealand English for that matter. Even those inner circle countries didn't have much of a clout. So the focus of attention in the English language teaching world was highly concentrated at that time. And I started learning English in the 1980s, by the way. And I hated English at the beginning. I was almost flunking out of English classes because I hated memorization. It was all about translation, grammar, and memorizing vocabulary. And I hated it with passion. And I refused to study English until I was about 17. For various reasons, I became interested in English. Well, okay, I'll tell you the reason. I took an elective English course. It was supposed to be a reading course. And I took it only because all my friends were taking it. Peer pressure. Right? That's how high school students sometimes make important decisions, right? And then once in the classroom, the teacher, who was a Canadian journalist, he came into the classroom and he started talking. I had no idea what he was saying. But my friends around me were saying, wow, really? And they were laughing. And I thought, what's going on? Until at that moment, I didn't realize all my friends were fluent in English. I was the only one who had almost zero proficiency. So, and then that class turned out to be not a reading class, but a writing class. And we were supposed to produce English newspaper. And for some reason, my friends said, I should become an editor. So I became an editor with no English proficiency, and I had to read my friends' English. I was doomed, right? And two of the key concepts in English language teaching at that time was the critical period hypothesis. The idea that if you are past puberty, if you are 15 or 16, it's too late to start learning a new language. you can never develop high level of proficiency. Strike number one. Strike two was in order to learn a language, you have to learn to speak before you learn to read and write. Nobody believes that anymore. But at that time, the concept of the primacy of speech, which was a 1940s ideas, by the way, was still floating in the air. Nobody had completely rejected those ideas. So I felt like I was trapped. But then I was pretty stubborn even back then. So I said, okay, I'm going to learn English despite all these theories that tells me I can't. And because I was too embarrassed to talk to my friends, I started reading and writing every single day. I spent most of my time reading and writing in English. And when I was taking classes in other subjects, I was taking notes in English. My English was probably terrible. It didn't make sense to anyone else, but it didn't matter. It didn't stop me. I just kept using English. And after 2 years, of reading and writing and some speaking and listening to radios and watching movies and so on, I had enough proficiency to get into college. But at that time, I wasn't interested in different varieties of English. I wasn't interested in learning Malaysian English or Thai English. I was more focused on learning the proper American English. And much later, I realized that there is no such thing as proper American English. Everybody speaks differently. And most of my native English speaker friends in the diving communities and motorcycle communities, when they find out that I'm an English professor, they say, oh, I better watch my grammar. And when they write on Facebook, I read their posts, they can't write. They need a lot of help with their English, right? But I didn't realize that at that time. So I was aiming for the golden standard, very much going against the emerging idea of world Englishes. So that was the 1980s for me. And then in the 1990s, evidence of how the English language is being spread and how they are becoming more established and more common was accumulating. And from various theoretical standpoints, some people started making critical and aggressive arguments promoting the diversity of the English language. And it was getting some traction. More people were paying attention. More people were buying into this idea. But at the same time, one of the few things that I remember from high school physics is that when there is force, there is counterforce. And yes, there was counterforce. Many people resisted even more strenuously in the 1990s. And it was almost uncomfortable. And around the turn of the century, the conflict was almost over, but then people who are interested in world Englishes or global Englishes or any derivation of those ideas started going in different directions, creating their own brand of global English studies. Some of them used the term English as a lingua franca. And that's mostly a European development originally. And in Asia, because of Braj Kachur is from India, his influence, and he was also influential in the US, world Englishes took hold as a key concept to build our ideas about the spread of the English language around. And there were some turf wars, conflicts among these scholars. Everybody thought their own version was better, or the other version was limited or competing in some ways. And that was uncomfortable. But then, after about a decade of the conflict, when you look around, we are studying the same phenomenon of how the English language is, or Englishes are, right? So the descriptions that we come up with and the conclusions that we came up with are more or less the same. There is no one way to nirvana. There are lots of different ways of arriving at the same goal. And that's what we accomplished by that time. So nowadays, I feel perfectly comfortable using English as a lingua franca, global Englishes or world Englishes as pretty much interchangeable as concepts, approaches, and implications. And now, after 2 years of pandemic, in some areas it's still continuing, but we are slowly, gradually coming out of the difficult time of our lives. When I look around, people are much more respectful of each other. People are more willing to communicate with different people. And in the media, you may see a lot of conflicts. Racism is still around. Biases towards certain countries based on their economic status or based on their history, it's still there. But in everyday interactions, and I traveled around the world, and I still do travel, even over the last 2 years, I have traveled a little bit. I have noticed that the attitude, people's attitude have changed quite a bit compared to 10 years ago. So I think the time for argument, academic argument, or civil argument is over for me. But instead, it's time for us to take stock of what we know and then think about how we can disseminate these ideas in ways that are more applicable to people. And how we can apply these ideas so that we can make the world a better place for everyone who speak different types of Englishes. That's my next agenda. And the pandemic actually gave me lots of ideas. One of the ideas is the use of memes. You've seen different campaigns, memes for wearing masks, right? Why wearing masks is a good idea, or how to maintain social distance. And people came up with lots of different ideas. Some of them are combative, some of them are aggressive arguments, stigmatizing people who don't wear masks, for example, or making fun of people who wear masks. But then there were other campaigns that were more informative, that were more effective overall in persuading other people. I think we can learn from this experience, how we use multiple languages, multiple modes of communication, modalities, in order to effectively change the public opinion for the better. So that's where I think we should be heading. And one of the places where the resistance is still strong, ironically, is in academia, especially in the classroom. As people, regular people, non-academics, we are fine with the idea of people speaking different varieties of English. As long as if I can get coffee when I order coffee, I'm happy. You know, it doesn't matter if the narrator of the video is calling Buriram, Burairam, It took me a while to figure out what he was talking about. But after a while, I can get used to it. People say it differently, and no problem, right? But in the classroom, we tend to resist. We still tend to look for standards. We still tend to look for the correct answer. I think we need to relax a little bit as teachers. And not just relax for our own sake, but to help students and the public relax a little bit or a lot. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the English language was cash language. It was privileged language. Everybody wanted it, but it was hard to attain. And students didn't see the needs. Students in Isan, they may not have seen the need for the English language because everybody speaks some variety of Thai or Isan, right? So why do I need to learn English? Only a handful of people actually needed it. But today, even the sign for the conference is not, I don't see, well, aside from the logos, I don't see any Thai on this banner, right? So if you don't have access to the English language, in some ways, we are left behind. So the English language today, in the age of global literacy, is no longer a someday language, a language that will someday be useful for you, or a language that you should learn now so that someday you will become rich and famous, thanks to the English language. That's how it was perceived back then, and that's not what it is now. Okay. Just to review some of the key ideas, English is a global language. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You can't avoid it. There are other languages as well. They coexist. Just like the picture of the fish that I showed you. We don't swim in schools, exclusive groups anymore. We swim among each other, interacting among different language speakers. It's everywhere, but English is ubiquitous. And the English language is no longer bound by geographic boundaries or national boundaries. It doesn't belong to an island in Northern Europe, or it doesn't belong in the North American continent, or Australia or New Zealand. It's everywhere. And the English language is being used for international and international uses. That is, my idea in the 1980s was that I would be using English only with English-speaking people outside of my country. And among ourselves, we would not be speaking English. Today, sometimes I chat with my friends in Japan in English. So international and international uses, both of them are legitimate uses of English. And there are numerous linguistic and functional varieties. Linguistic varieties are structurally well-established varieties that are shared by communities of people. There are many varieties, even within the same country. And if you look internationally, there are many different grammars of English. There are many varieties of vocabularies that are being used in different ways. And we need to be able to navigate those differences. And vocabulary, especially, can easily transcend languages. We have loan words, words that came from English that became part of Thai language, for example. Mosai, right? Motorcycle. How are you going to say Mosai without using English? There's a video on YouTube from the Philippines that challenges people to speak Tagalog without, or Filipino, without using any English words. They can't speak pure Filipino without switching or using some English vocabulary. It's just an integral part of it. And over the last 10, 15 years, maybe, I have also noticed the reverse trend. The English language has always been a diverse language. Its vocabulary has come from Latin and Greek, French, Norwegian, lots of different languages. And back in the 80s, anything that had to do Japan, the Japanese words in English were like highly cultural concepts like geisha or samurai or shogun, right? Because these concepts didn't exist in the English language. They had to borrow those words. And then things started to change. Tsunami, which hit Kaolack 15 years ago, that's a Japanese word, right? And instead of using the inaccurate English word tidal wave, they adapted this word that fit the context perfectly. If you are a photographer, you may have heard of the notion of bokeh, which is the blurred background. And it's not a complete blur like the iPhone artificial blur, but a nice photography would have blurred background that tells you a story about the background, but it's in the background. The main focus is the subject of the photo, right? And that term bokeh comes from Japanese. And another example is in English, some people have started saying add oil to mean susu, fighting, right? And add oil is a literal translation of the Chinese expression jayo, which means susu. And that has become part of the English lexicon, right? So the flow of influence has become much more dynamic and multi-directional. Whereas in the 80s, English tended to influence other languages more than the other way around. And the English language is the most widely taught second languages in the world. And already in the 1980s and 1990s, Braj Kachru and others were arguing that there are more non-native English speakers than native English speakers. And Henry Whittleson famously said that English does not belong to native English speakers anymore. The English language belongs to those who use it. We all are the owners of the English language. And we all contribute to how it spreads and how it changes. We are no longer bystanders who are benefiting from this language that's being developed by other people. And how many of you have cell phones? Pretty much everyone, right? Does your cell phone have anything that's written in English? Your apps, text messages, Facebook posts, Instagram, English is everywhere. Even though the language on the internet is multiplying, English still is the dominant language of the internet. And in the digital era, now I like how Ajahn Ek manages to combine my favorite topics together every time. He never fails. So global literacy meets the digital era. And in schools, we were trying to teach students to write formal essays so that they can pass TOEFL, IELTS, or other types of exams, right? And local exams even were often modeled after TOEFL and IELTS. Why? Why do we have to teach students to write that? What are the chances of them using that kind of language, that kind of genre in their real life? Most of our communication happens in non-evaluative contexts. We are not judged by the quality of writing, but we are judged by the quality of contributions, the insights that we share, the connections that we form using the language. Meaning is more important than the form. And as language specialists, it might be hard to take. And that's one of the reasons in the 1980s, there was so much resistance, because English teachers were the masters of forms, not of contents. But today, we have to be both. Because language learning is most effective when there's meaning involved. So we need to look for opportunities to engage students in meaningful interactions, both informal and formal. And communication is increasingly multimodal. Well, here's the non-news. It's always been multimodal. When people think about speaking, linguists in the 19th century and early 20th century wanted to focus just on the structure of language. But that's not how we communicated. Never. We use our facial expressions. During the pandemic, many of us have naturally learned to smile with our eyes because we can't use the whole face to communicate our emotions, right? And the use of gestures or even more unconventionalized acts, like how you run. Like I was standing, there were a group of people who were taking photos. And I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna have some fun. So I wanted to join them, but I didn't walk up to them like this. That would be arrogant, right? So I said, can I join? That communicates something. And in discourse analysis, it's called framing. We frame our discourse in some ways, and that's not always done linguistically, but we use multimodal resources constantly to communicate our messages and to frame our messages so that they are understood in the right way. And some people might have difficulty chatting with some of your friends. Every time you chat online, you get into a conflict. Or every time you have a video chat, it just feels different. But when you talk to that person face to face or through a different combination of media, everything works just fine. And that's because we rely on multiple resources in order to make meaning. And we need to be more versatile. We need to get used to using different combinations of resources in order to communicate. And that's the kind of communication we will need, and we already need in the digital era, and even outside of the digital context. And communication and the shaping of the conventions is becoming more and more interactive. That is, we negotiate meaning on the spot. If you say something and if you don't understand, we're not going to correct them, right? We're not going to say, oh, that's not how you use that word. That would be super rude. It's not done, or it shouldn't be. But instead, you would say, oh, did you try to, did you mean this? I thought you were talking about something else. We go through this kind of negotiation as a matter of everyday practice. It's not something that we use for special occasions. right? And we need to teach students these strategies, how to communicate, how to negotiate. And, you know, as language specialist, we want to understand everything 100%, because when you're taking a test, you have to understand everything, every single word, every single structure, right? But in real life communication, we are not actually understanding half of the stuff people are saying. Sometimes, you know, my hearing is getting worse and worse these days. And when somebody was telling me something, I'm listening, but I can't hear anything at all. And I'm relying on their facial expression to guess what they might be talking about, or it's something happy or something sad. And then I adjust my facial expression accordingly. And sometimes that happens. And then later I might ask somebody else, what did she just say? Right? That happens a lot. But that's part of negotiation as well. And the contents and the forms are user generated. We can more easily coin new terms. We can try creative language use. Like English is not a someday language anymore, right? And then if it fits the context, if you can explain it properly, if you can provide enough background information, people will understand it and people will begin to use that phrase. And it spreads really quickly because of the digital environment these days. And it doesn't matter who said it first. Somebody else may have said it already. I don't know. I've never heard that expression. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else was using that on the internet. And then it might come back to me. And somebody might tell me, did you know that English is no longer a someday language? Yep, right? That happens a lot. So we are actively, every time we open our mouth, every time we do something, we are contributing to the development of the English language. We are either reinforcing the conventions or widely accepted practices within certain circles, or we are challenging it, or we are adding to it. Right? And if enough people don't understand an expression, then people might stop using it because it becomes useless. Right? So it goes both ways. We are sometimes adding to existing resources, and sometimes collectively we decide to dismiss certain expressions. And our communication is increasingly multilingual and translingual. And some of you know that I have resisted the word translingual because some people in the writing world used it poorly. But the concept of translanguaging makes a lot of sense. And that concept is the fish that are intermingling. We don't exclusively use a single language for communication in order to be legitimate. We can mix and match different language resources just as we mix and match different modalities to maximize our meaning-making potential. And even without arguing, even without knowing the history of world Englishes or how it has been studied or what controversies are there, as scholars, we need to know. As researchers, we need to know. But people on the street, people who are living their lives just using language for their own purposes, they don't need to know the history. They don't need to know the theory. They just need to be able to do it. And the values are shifting. Inner circle varieties are no longer dominant. I don't have to tell you that. I don't have to argue that, right? It's a given. And what's important really in the real life is not accuracy or correctness. Not at all. It's the intelligibility and comprehensibility. If other people don't understand what you are saying, if you are not making any sense, then there is a problem. But as long as your message is being conveyed, accurate enough so that you get the food that you ordered, or people understand that you are not trying to fight with each other, then your purpose is served. But why in the classroom do we still insist that students maintain accuracy and correctness and don't even pay attention to the meaning? There is something wrong with that. We are reinforcing the wrong attitude in the classroom. We need to rethink how we assess. And creative uses should be encouraged, right? If it doesn't make sense, if it's inappropriate or embarrassing, then you might want to say, you know, some people might misunderstand you. But if it works, why not, right? You can say, well, that's not conventional, but I see what you mean. That's something that should be encouraged, right? I don't think we do that enough in the classroom. We focus so much on following the textbook. And errors, people used to be embarrassed about it. People still are in some ways. They don't feel like speaking in public or writing in official capacities because they are so embarrassed and they are afraid of making errors and being judged for it. Ilona Lecky, in her book, 1991 book, used the phrase written accents. In speaking, we don't care what kind of accents people have, as long as we can understand each other, right? Why do we insist in writing that people write in the same style? You know, one of my pet peeves when I'm writing for publication is that copy editors who have no academic background whatsoever, they're just following the formula for clear, proper writing. And they say, that's not how we say it. As if that editor and the group of people that they belong to own the language. So every time I get that comment, I write back and say, well, thank you for your comment, but this is how I say it. And it's okay. And there's usually a reason behind it. I never write something, I never choose a word. I never choose a sentence structure without a good reason. So I argue back. And I consider that part of my public diplomacy or advocacy, to subtly change people's attitude toward language, to make people realize that they don't own the language. And saying something differently, even though it may break the conventions, is okay. And how many of you are familiar with the concept of multi-competence? Okay, multi-competence is an idea that was developed and promoted by Vivian Cook. And the idea is also developed and discussed differently by other people like Jim Cummins from Canada. And people used to think of competencies in English, the proficiency, English proficiency and Thai proficiency as something that resides separately in our heads. And limited neurolinguistic research also identified different areas of the brain that were stimulated while people are using their L1 and L2. But as it turns out, much of the linguistic competencies that we use is shared across any different languages, multiple languages that we use. So we have So we have a core of competencies that are non-language specific. And then we have just add-on knowledge to adapt to the particular usage or particular structures that exist only in those languages. Right? And thinking of it that way allows us, dispels the long-standing myth about bilingualism. In the 1960s and 70s, people thought being bilingual was unhealthy, abnormal, because their L1 or L2 performance was somehow different. Being different was bad, right? But if you think of it, any language that children use in order to develop their core competencies in language is going to carry over to other languages. And if you compare them 30 years from now, 40 years from now, it doesn't matter which language you learn first. And many people looking around and talking about their own experience, they will say, well, but my English is not as developed as Thai, or I can't do certain things in English, whereas I can function perfectly in Thai. Well, the secret is not whether it's your L1 or L2. You can function really well in any language, but if you have to put in the time on task. Practice is the key. Lourdes Ortega, a well-known second language acquisition researcher, has argued that comparing college students in the US and Thailand in terms of their English language proficiency is unfair. Not because Thai speakers of English are second language learners, but because US English speakers, if they went through the English language education throughout their career, they have been speaking English and using English for 18 years, every day, sometimes exclusively. How many hours have Thai college students been using English? Not much, right? In comparison. So if you wanted to develop a high level of proficiency, you do need to practice a lot. And that's what I did in high school. I practiced English every day. When I woke up, I tried to think about my mental status. Am I feeling tired? Am I feeling good? In English. When I was having breakfast, I was thinking about the names of the food in English. And I picked up an English newspaper. I was reading it on the train during English classes. I wasn't paying attention to the lectures. I was just reading newspapers in the back of the classroom. And my teacher didn't mind. He let me do it because he knew I was onto something, right? So having good mentors who understand you and give you the opportunity to do it is important. But anyway, so we do need to emphasize the need for lots of practice. If you want to get better at it, you need to use it. Okay, now just to kind of recap some of the ideas about how we negotiate the English language. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, this was the dominant way of thinking about language. We are bound to our linguistic, cultural, and educational context. We were influenced by these things. And when we spoke in a second language or when we wrote in a second language, the L1 features or cultural features, ways of thinking, flipped into the second language text. And the text was being evaluated by the standards of the native English speaking readers. The ESL text or L2 text is going to look different than what the native English speakers would expect, right? And if you use the native English speaker norm as the measuring stick. Of course, L2 writing is inferior, less developed. And the writing process is a struggle. But if you think about the development of language resources and the community of our discourse as something that's shared equally by writers and readers, then we don't evaluate the quality of writing or language, for that matter, on the basis of any one person's standards. But we bring our perceptions and we recognize that we have our biases, but there are other ways of doing the same thing. Maybe there are better ways of doing things, right? And we negotiate the meaning of the text. And as we negotiate the meaning of the text, we also negotiate our assumptions. We challenge our assumptions. And that's how we become better communicators. That's how we become users of English as global languages, English as a global language. By the way, this was my first published article in 1997. I wrote this when I was in the PhD program. And this idea seemed far-fetched, idealistic at that time. But here we are. I think this is a given now. All right, and as teacher, okay, so I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to try to wrap things up and then take a break and give you some time to think about the questions you want to ask. But let me just wrap up by talking about what that means to us as teachers. So we have more non-native English speaking teachers than native English speaking teachers. And in the 80s, in the 90s, there was some kind of competition, supposedly, you know, but I think it's silly because we are comparing apples and oranges in some ways. We are not defined solely by the type of language that we speak or write, but we are defined by lots of other things. And these are some of the things that we need to have as teachers. Communicative competence. If you want students to learn how to speak English or write English, we as teachers need to be able to do it. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be the best English user, but we have to be good enough to give students some examples, to inspire students, right? And I think in the educational culture, we tend to expect perfection all the time because that's how we have been graded all along. But you know, I do other things. And in order to learn better about teaching and learning, I started teaching other things. I teach scuba diving and I teach motorcycle riding. And people who teach scuba diving and motorcycle riding are not MotoGP racers. They are not that good, but they are good enough and they can do things consistently so that we can demonstrate how things are done. We can provide insights based on our experience. That's the kind of level of proficiency that everybody needs to aim for. And if you don't already have that, what do you need to do? Practice, 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 right? If you don't practice, your English is going to perish. Multi-competence. We need to recognize that we, as language users, are constantly developing our proficiency. And it doesn't matter what language you use. If you don't write in any language, you won't be able to write. It's going to become harder and harder. So maintain your multi-competence and try to develop it. Try to learn more languages. And one of the things that I started doing over the last 15, maybe 20 years is to try to learn the languages of the places that I visit. It's a slow process. aside from English, I've never taken a language class, period. But I try every time I come to Thailand, I try to use a different word. When I hear something, I try to understand the meaning. And my Thai is improving. I can tell taxi drivers where to go and where to stop and where to turn, right? And I can order food. Sometimes I get the wrong thing, but that's a lesson, right? What's important is that we try. If we don't have the willingness to communicate, if we don't have the willingness to learn and allow ourselves to be learners, we can't inspire our students to do the same. And we also need to have some meta-linguistic knowledge. And I have a friend who is a beginning motorcycle rider. And she tries to ride motorcycle, but it's not very smooth. So I said, you might want to take some lessons. And she found someone who is super good rider, motocross rider. He can jump over like different obstacles and do all kinds of crazy things with his motorcycle. He's super good, but he has no meta knowledge. He can't explain what he does. So all he can do is watch me, and he does it. Do it. That doesn't work, right? So just because you can speak the language doesn't mean you can teach it. You need to know how to explain things in ways that learners can understand it. Pedagogical knowledge. How do we present material so that it's clearer? How do we organize our materials? How do we build learning on top of each other so that students can gradually develop their competence? That takes a lot of strategic thinking. And textbooks, teaching materials that we use, they may not provide that. That's the kind of skill that we need to develop as teachers so that we can cater to individual students' learning. And we need to know something about how learning happens.
ไม่ร้านเปิดหรือยังอ๋อโอเคที่เดียวนี่แหละครับตรงไหนได้บ้างเนี่ยมันมีปลั๊กอยู่ไหมผมอยากใช้แล็ปท็อปด้วยมีปลั๊กเสียบไหมตรงนั้นเนาะ
That happens. Okay. So we need to know something about how learning happens, how people develop, and how different people develop differently. What kind of activities they respond to. And we need to have the knowledge of students. I think there's another microphone going on somewhere. Yeah, thank you. We need to be aware, and students these days are different from students 5 years ago, 10 years ago. During the pandemic, the same students were in different mental state. We need to be aware of that and sensitive to that and respond to those differences. And also, we need to be aware of ourselves, who we are, how we are perceived by others, what we are good at, what we are not good at, and then use that as a leverage for making our teaching effective. Being reflective, being self-aware, but not too self-conscious is an important trait for becoming an excellent language teacher. So regardless of where you come from, what kind of background you have, we need to strive to develop all of these and many other important traits as language teachers. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort, constant effort, but we must do it. And when it comes to different types of languages that we introduce, textbook language, we often make fun of textbook language, right? It's too formal, or we never say it that way on the street. But we do need to teach some dominant uses because students might someday need those expressions. But we also need to expose students to non-dominant uses. They don't have to master it. Not everything we teach has to be mastered, but they need to be aware that there are other things going on in the world. Just creating that awareness is going to facilitate their development in the long run. And this is a false dichotomy, traditional and digital. And I tried different combinations, paper and digital, not quite. Digital and non-digital, that's probably the most accurate, but awkward expression. Just because we live in the digital era doesn't mean digital is everything. We do need to get students to use pen and paper sometimes. That's a different kind of literacy that may become necessary and useful in different parts of our interactions. Formal and informal, not just in terms of the structure, not just in terms of the style, but in terms of different contexts. To me, formal language use is highly evaluative, hierarchical relationship, communication that happens between teacher and students, supervisors and workers, or president and faculty members. We follow certain rules and we are judged by not whether we follow or not follow those rules, right? And that's what it makes it formal. Informal, on the other hand, is more peer-to-peer. You can be relaxed, you can do unconventional things, and it's okay. You can have fun. You can play with language. And how do children learn to do anything? By play, right? Adults can do that too. We need to have fun with language. We need to play with language. And if we are having a lot of fun, we get to learn something. And believe it or not, those things that we learn through play, they do carry over to more serious contexts and make us better language users and language learners. And we need to expose students to the idea, well, they already have been, to that the world is increasingly multilingual and translingual. We don't just stick to one language. It's not, the best answer is not always using English only or Thai only, right? We need to be more flexible as we try to accomplish our communicative goals. And we need to, in small ways, bring the reality from the outside world into the classroom so that students will see how the classroom learning is going to transfer to what they will actually be doing. And that is going to enhance their learning in the classroom as well. That's an insight from learning transfer research. We need to point out the similarities. We need to bring in the realities and have students practice in various environments. Okay, this is something that I started developing in around 2002 and formalized more in 2010. In the classroom, here are the 5 things that we teach. Teach the dominant discourses so that students will have the resources that they need in order to function properly in formal situations. But teach the non-dominant discourses so that they will be flexible, they won't be stuck with the traditional ideas of what's correct, what's appropriate. And teach the boundary between dominant and non-dominant discourses, or what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Because what works in certain contexts and what doesn't is not a binary. There's a gray area, negotiable, right? So they need to know that and see examples of that. And teach strategies for negotiation. If people don't understand what you are saying, what do? Do you have a nervous breakdown, or do you smile and try something different, right? Actually, smile is a good strategy, right? When somebody don't understand me, if they are confused, I just smile. and then tell them that, okay, I'm not angry. I'm waiting. It's okay. And teach the risks and benefits of negotiating differences. There are times and places where you don't want to play. You want to be serious. You want to use more traditional language in order to be accepted. Like when you're writing a job application letter, resume, errors can be fatal, right? Because people judge your intelligence. They shouldn't, but they do on the basis of your language. So hire a proofreader if you need to, right? That's a strategy too. Hire translators like Google Translate, but learn how to use it well so that you don't embarrass yourself with terrible translations. So these are the kind of things that I teach when I teach language and writing. I hope you find it useful. And assessment, focus on intelligibility or legibility and comprehensibility rather than correctness. If students do something well, recognize it, but don't insist that they do it perfectly every time. Value willingness to communicate, because this is important not only for communication, but also for learning. And create more formative or provide more formative assessment and less summative assessment. Formative assessment is the kind of assessment that helps students understand where they are and where they need to go, and hopefully some tips about what they can do to get there. And that sounds strikingly similar to Vygotsky's idea, right? You probably know the concept, the zone of proximal development. And summative assessment is basically telling students they are great or they suck. Some students want to know that, but does it help them learn? No. Testing is not what teaches. Teaching is what teaches. Formative assessment is about giving students feedback so that they can grow, not to punish them, not to judge them. And assessment and activities, we tend to focus on midterm exams or final exams. Spread it out, make it easier, make it fun. More frequent and low stakes assessment is going to help students build competencies. Final assessment is summative. It doesn't help them grow. And expose students to different practices, give them interesting examples, have them practice, emphasize the importance of practice. And completing assignment is actually important. Many of my small assignments are pass-fail or complete-incomplete. As long as students do it, they learn something. If they don't do it, they don't learn something. And if you make it easy enough, they will do it. If you make it too challenging, they will cheat. They will get help from other people, and they end up not learning anything. They only earn grades. And that's not what education is all about. And participation, being active, contributing to how things are done in the classroom, helping each other out, nodding when other people are speaking, active listening, all of these things count. Reward them with points, grades, whatever you can. And my golden standard these days for assessment is good enough assessment. Is it good enough to earn an A? Instead of, is it perfect? Right? That standard, that way of thinking has really helped me become more realistic in assessing students and encouraging students to perform better. And that's also something that I learned from teaching other things than English. If I just focused on the English language teaching, I would never have thought of these. So let's work towards normalizing differences in the classroom. It takes a lot of efforts, but it's well worth it because we are already here in the global world. Thank you very much. Khop kun krap. So it's 11:15 already. Wow, you are so patient and attentive. Thank you very much. So let's take a 10-minute break.
Yes, we
And
will
then-
have a 10-minute break and we will come back to the Q&A sessions. Yes.
All right. So we will come back at
We will come back at 11:25.
25.
Yes. There are coffee in front of the meeting hall.
Because she teach about
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the conference Icon English Language Teaching 2022 by PhD in ALT, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Viramajapat University, and co-hosted from different institutes. And thank you very much for your cooperation today. And for the keynote speech by Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda. Okay, he give the clear comprehension regarding the English as a global language, global literacy in the digital age, shifting value, the classroom varieties, and also the teaching language differences with 5 principles. And we hopefully that all participants for this conference will get a better comprehend about world Englishes. Yes.
Yes, I think it's a good time for our Q&A sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, would you like to ask questions about the presentation from the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda?
Yes, please feel free to ask the question about his keynote speech.
There are 2 online questions from the online participants. One is from Ajahn Yuthajak Lamjunjit. He asked that from now, will the global tests like TOEIC, IELTS, and TOEFL include variety of English, or will they keep their standard from the inner circle only?
That's a really good question. You asked the same question earlier, and my answer is look at the rubric. If you look at the rubric, you will notice that the highest band for IELTS or TOEFL does not require perfect grammar. Some deviation is acceptable, but the focus is on good communication, using a variety of vocabulary and so forth. And a lot of times as teachers, we impose our own assumptions about what's good for students without paying attention to what's actually being asked of students.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And another question from Ajahn Dawn Mary from Myanmar. She asked that, is it possible to accept world Englishes in ELT classroom? I mean, in teaching skill like writing, how can EFL teachers deal with errors students made in writing process in ELT classroom?
Right. When was the last time you had students who did not have any errors?
None.
When was the last time you were able, when was the last time you were able to provide any kind of feedback, corrective feedback or other types of feedback that led to perfection? Student language it's there. It has different features, right? Some of them are useful, some of them might prevent communication. So we need to focus on what's most important at that moment for student learning. It may be in order to enhance their communication or to understand key concepts that we are trying to teach or students are supposed to learn. But do we need to pay attention to every single detail? No. Can we? No. And if we do pay attention to everything, do students learn? No. So we need to learn to prioritize and not be too concerned about perfection, because it's unrealistic, it's not helpful, and it's actually harmful for learning.
Okay.
It sets impossible standards that students can never follow, and students will give up.
Thank you for your clear answer. And what about in this room? Do we have any questions? Oh, Ajahn, can you?
Good morning, Dr. Masuda. I have one question that I'm still confused when I listen to your speaking, right? It's about good enough assessment. I'm still confused. Please clarify it again, please.
Right. So when we assess students, we tend to think of the line that students have to reach. And we try to get students to reach the highest point of that band. But when we expect that, students are trying and trying and trying and not reaching the next level, right? But when we think of the baseline for that level band, if they are slightly above it, then they've already met the standards for that band. And they can, of course, improve and shoot for the next level. But instead of looking up for the ceiling that you can never reach, look at the floor where you're standing. That's just a mental shift in how we look at the bands. You know, so TOEFL written exam, test of written English, or the written part of it now, and IELTS writing test, their scores, 5 point, 4 point, it's not a point, it's a band, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be good enough to reach those standards. And again, this is something that I started thinking more about when I'm teaching motorcycle. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be good enough to be able to do that one thing that I'm trying to teach, or that one thing that I'm trying to test. Everything else, well, you can be struggling. But if you hit those 5 points that are really important for this learning unit, then it's good enough. I don't have to punish them with lower grade for things that we didn't teach, or the things that students aren't paying attention to. So it's more about a mental shift in how we see assessment, how we use scoring. Because when we talk about standardized tests or psychometric tests, we are so used to thinking of scores as points. But performance tests, we can't be that precise. And especially for writing assessment, we don't have 100-point scales. So the scores students get is not a point, it's a band. So aiming for good enough to be in that band is a reasonable goal for me.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. Are there any other questions at the back? Yes.
Good morning. I'm Charlotte. I am from Faculty of Education, Rajapat University. I'm a Filipino. Okay, I would just like to ask with regards to with what you mentioned that English, with regards to the accent, with regards to if it's an American or British English, it doesn't matter as long as you understand. Can I ask you, with your own personal experience with regards to the global and standard teaching with regards to the culture, what is your best example to that? Thank you.
Okay, global standards of culture.
Global teaching and standard teaching.
Global teaching and standard teaching.
Yeah, what's that best, like your personal thoughts on that and your personal experience with regards to the culture in applying with the standard teaching? Thank you.
Right. Well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by global standards, global teaching and standard teaching, but if I understand correctly, so global teaching is teaching English more with the global English mindset, and standard teaching is more about teaching to a single standard usage, like American English or British English, and so on. Okay. So the difference is that when we teach a single privileged variety of English, we may be preparing students to function with in a certain context. Like, if students are going to the US to study, it might be useful. But how many of your students are going to the US for their graduate studies or work in the US or interact with Americans in their business? I think there's a greater chance for students to be interacting with people like me, who is from the US but not from the US, or people coming from other countries, Philippines, or Malaysia, or Australia, different parts of the world. And so if we prepare students for only single standards, they may not be able to adapt to those differences and be able to communicate more effectively. But if we prepare them to have good enough proficiency and adaptability, the ability to negotiate differences, to communicate across languages, then that's going to be more useful, right? So that's how I think of it. And that doesn't, if you speak a particular variety of English because of where you come from, you can use that variety for teaching and then tell students that, well, I speak this way or I use these expressions because in the Philippines, this is a common expression. But elsewhere in the world, people may not understand it or people might be confused. That awareness is what's really important to me. It's not just the language that we teach, but it's the information, the meta-linguistic awareness that helps students become better learners and better users.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor. Are there any other questions, please?
There are two online questions as well. Okay,
yes.
one more from here.
One more.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Anon Chasriya. Now I am a lecturer at Suranadi University of Technology. I have questions that may not be related to global Englishes, but I ask for everyone here because we are producing a lot of doctoral students, right, and doctoral graduates in the future. And I think some of us may want to have a chance to work in the United States like you. Okay. So I would like you to tell us a little bit about the qualifications
especially like English, and some challenges and some ways that we may have a chance to get a career in the United States. Thank you very much, Ajahn.
Well, there are lots of different career paths that are available, and there are different qualifications. So I can't say in general what students need to be able to do. But if you are thinking of becoming a professor in the US, if you wanted to work at institutions like ASU, Arizona State University, which is a research-intensive institution, then before you get hired, you need to have at least 2 or 3 publications in top journals in the US or internationally in the field. And by the time you come up for tenure, which is five years, during the first 5 years, I think we came up with a numerical goal, and you need to have at least 8 articles or equivalent within the first 5 years. And then the rest, some people have more, but you have to have at least 8. Plus, there are quality requirements. Some of those publications have to be the top tier journals in the field. And there's also requirements for service, university service, department service, as well as professional organizational service, like serving on committees at international conferences or organizing conferences and so forth, or serving on editorial boards. And then to become a full professor, you need to maintain the same kind of productivity. But this time, it's not just the number or the quality or the visibility of the publication or the impact, but also you have to have established yourself enough so that you get invited as plenary speakers or receive awards and meet other criteria. And research in terms of getting visas, having PhD and having a research career actually helps a lot. If it's a teaching institutions, there are enough people locally who can teach those courses. So they might not be interested in sponsoring visas.
Okay, thank you for your answer. We have 2 online questions. One from Ajahn Yuthajat Lamtunjit. If a program consists of teachers from different variety background, when we select textbooks from our school courses, is it time to select textbook from those background to teach in our country?
If you can find a textbook that provides exposure to different varieties of English or particular varieties of English that you'd like to emphasize, that would be ideal. But I've never found a textbook that I like. If you're a textbook writer, I'm sorry. I've never found a textbook that works for me. So if I do use a textbook, or if I have to use a textbook, I use it as a reference. And I try to use some of the key information and some of the readings from the textbooks, some of the activities, but I prefer to devise my own activities for students. And often in the morning when I'm surfing the internet, looking at the news, there's a topic that's of interest to students. And it may come from different parts of the world. And if it's relevant, and if the kind of language that they use, vocabulary, sentence structures are relevant to the students, I would bring them into the classroom and then talk about it. And then have students read it or tell students, so here's a resource. If you want to read this, it's available for you, right? But if you don't, it's okay. I'll talk about what's important. So my teaching whether it's a writing class or a language class or a graduate class, is highly handcrafted. And it does, some of that takes time, but a lot of things that I do is, oh, this is an interesting article. I can use it in these 3 ways. These are the points that I want to make, and I bring it in, have students look at it, discuss, and students may learn other things than what I planned. That's okay, right? Incidental learning helps. But when I recap, I will say, so here are a few things that I wanted to point out, and then talk about some of the key features. And then if students use particular sentence structures or ideas in their writing, I might say, great connection that you made here, right? And to encourage them and to reward their effort in making connections.
Thank you so much. I think this will be the last questions from Wei Nin Yi from Myanmar. She asked that, what I would like to ask professor to confirm is how to judge standard English. For instance, in Myanmar, we regard English global as standard English and remind the student how to spell just like global English. Please advise how to instruct the student, especially in their writing.
You don't have to label their language use anything. So what I focus on is it interesting? Is it working? Is it appropriate for what students are trying to do? And depending on the level of students, level of the class that you are teaching, you may have to focus on certain structures. And if that's the case, I would focus on those structures. But beyond that, if there are different usage that's interesting, I would just casually comment on it. And so I'm reading for whatever that I'm not trying to teach actively. I'm trying to read more like a reader, not as a teacher, so that students will know how people might react to certain features.
Okay, thank you so much for your clear answer.
There's one more question.
Oh, one more.
We still have time, right?
Yes, we still have time.
Okay, thank you. Professor Paul, with respect to global Englishes, okay, excuse me. Okay, you said English language belongs to all of those who use it. No group of people own English language. Now, my question now is, what advice can you give to aspiring textbook writers to be able to write textbook that will suit a variety of cultures? Thank you.
That's a good question. So if you are interested in writing textbooks, the first thing that you can keep in mind is to have a variety of representation. Different countries, different ethnicities, different language backgrounds, different contexts, so that we can dissociate the English language from certain privileged context. And that way, students will have a better understanding, won't be surprised when they hear English in Thailand or Cameroon or any other context, right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think as teachers and the textbooks and materials and the students have traditionally, the 1980s mindset is English has to be this way. Everything else is fake. Everything else is a deviation and it's not desirable. But the more we can desensitize students, or the more we can reinforce the open mind that students already have these days is better.
Yes, thank you, Professor. It seems that there are so many questions that the participant would like to ask. Maybe this is the real last one, please, Professor. Yes.
Thank you, teacher. Good morning. I am Cholit Kumbukyo from Buriram Rajabhat University. I would like you to suggest to advise what will be happen in future about teaching, learning English at as you say now it is the digital era. Yeah.
It's already happening. During the pandemic, we have been teaching English in the digital environment, using not meeting face-to-face, interacting. You know, we don't say, turn to your friend, neighbor, and introduce yourself, right? But we would put them into small groups digitally and then have them interact. After 3 minutes, come out and report on what you learned, right? So it's already happening. And some people resist it because we are not sure about the new technology, how to use it. Some people resist it. Some teachers are afraid that students know more about how these technologies work. And so they don't want to embarrass themselves. You know, I'm a techie. I like technology. I like gadgets. But these days, I'm beginning to feel that even I can't keep up with it. So rather than trying to be the expert in the classroom, let the students be the expert. If there is a student who is particularly good at coordinating things, I would say, so you are really good at using this software. Can you set up a group for us? And then involve them in the learning process. And in more traditional educational context where teachers have authority and students are learners receiving wisdom from the teachers, if that's the traditional attitude towards teaching and learning, then this transition may be a challenging one. But once you open up and once you start feeling comfortable with the different dynamics, different power relationships, I think, and once we have become more desensitized to new relationships, that's when we can start to use the digital resources and other resources much more productively in the classroom. And in order for that to happen, we have to try something new. Ask students to give you suggestions. So the world is becoming much more multimodal. And I'm still learning about this concept. Have you ever heard of this concept? And if you haven't, let's do research together. Let's find out what that means, how people use that word. And what do people do when they do multimodal writing? And then come up with a small activity that students can do. And then have them set up their assessment. So what's working about this project? What's not working quite well? What do you think you can do to make it better? Right? So for things that we don't know everything about, we don't have to be the authority, but we can try to explore it and find out together. And it doesn't have to be the whole course, right? We can do it maybe one small activity towards the end of the semester. After covering all the things that you are used to covering, you can introduce a wild card and create some space for play. That's how I would start with any new concepts, any new environment.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor, for your answer. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the speech on global Englishes in the era of global literacy, challenges, opportunities, and strategies by our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda. Yes, and on this occasion, may I invite Assistant Professor Dr. Navmin Prachanan the Vice President of International Affairs, Buriram Ratchapat University, the PhD in ELT Curriculum Committee, and on behalf of ICON ELT 2022 Organizing Committee, to deliver a thankful message to our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda. Please.
Actually, I have one question. May I ask you one question before we end it, right? You know that now we are in the global English era, okay, and then we try to, okay, improve our students in terms of English, okay, according to the approaches of global Englishes or world Englishes. But one thing, okay, the criteria, okay, for assessing or evaluating the student, we have to follow with CFR framework, okay, that focus on accuracy and then correctness, right? Okay, and then how, okay, can we, what is it, what do I mean, how can we mix or merge, okay, them, okay, according to what is it, the classroom, okay, activity that we focus on global Englishes, and then for the framework of CFR, we are curious to know about your opinion or your suggestion.
Right. Yeah. When it comes to policies, standards, and so forth, my answer is always the same. Look at the standards, know the standards really well, and find out where the discrepancies are, where the gaps are, where, and a lot of times we assume that we have to do certain things, and we follow these rules that doesn't exist. So looking at the standards and knowing exactly what it asks you to do and knowing what it's not asking you to do is going to give you a lot more room for creativity and innovation.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, it's clearer, okay, it's clear for us, right? And for everyone here, because I think that more than 95% of them are English teacher, okay, from different institution, okay, especially from secondary school, primary school, and university levels. Okay, okay. On behalf of Buriram Ratchapat University, ELT PhD in ELT program and the organizing committee, okay, I would like to say thank you very much for your insightful, okay, talk today. Just I can remember, okay, this is the second time, okay, that we invite you just on site, but okay, we meet you and see you, okay, many times, okay, online, okay, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I agree that all of you here, okay, learn and gain more, okay, about global Englishes, right? And then we can use it in our classroom. Just I can remember maybe about 20 years ago when one approach, okay, go to Thailand, right? Just like student center. And then some English teachers, okay, in all level in Thailand misunderstood about that. And then for this one is about the trend, okay, the hot issue that we have to keep in our mind, and then we have to be aware, okay, when we teach our student to achieve the goal, okay, of English or another languages. And for me, I learned a lot, and one thing that I have to learn more, okay, one word that Professor Dr. Paul, okay, mentioned about multi-competence. Okay, I have to learn more about that, and because it's very important. And another words, okay, that we can use it, okay, when we teach our students or another learners, okay, to achieve the goal, right? Okay, so now, okay, everyone, may I invite, or okay, all of you to share, Okay, me too. Thanks. Okay, Professor Dr. Paul Masuda. Okay, by giving a big applause, right? Thank you very much, and hope to see you again. And then we hope that you love Buriram, because I told him that yesterday he wear the shirt that I bought for him about maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and then today he wear the new one. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, the Vice President of Buriram Ratchapat University. And thank you very much, our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda. Thank you very much. And next, yes, we would like to take about 5 minutes to give the information in the afternoon session, please.
Yes, I would like to give more details about the afternoon sessions. We will have featured speech by invited speakers at 6 parallel sessions. There will be 2 online sessions, 4 on-site sessions, and 1 poster presentation in front of this meeting hall. The oral presentation will be starting at 1 p.m. at 7th and 9th floor of this building. And online presentation will be in the Zoom meeting, and the poster presentation will be in front of this meeting hall. All participants can scan the QR code of the abstract book inside your conference bag. And also please scan the QR code and fill out the evaluation form. Your cooperation is very much appreciated.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce our featured speaker and commentators in each session in the afternoon. For online session room 1, the featured speakers and commentators will be Professor Nini Lai from Ministry of Education, Myanmar. Associate Professor Dr. Anchali Vanalak from Suratnari University of Technology. For online session room 2, the featured speakers and commentators will be Professor Dr. Ki Shin, Rector of Yangon University of Malay Languages, Yangon, Myanmar. And Associate Professor Dr. Pham Phu Phi Ho from Van Lang University, Vietnam.
Yes, and for on-site sessions, room 1, the commentators are Professor Dr. Paul K. Masuda from Arizona State University, USA. And the second commentator is Assistant Professor Dr. Shukiat Zarat from Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. And for our on-site room 2, the featured speakers and commentators are Assistant Professor Dr. Kornvipha Poonpon from Khon Kaen University, Thailand. And the second featured speaker and commentators are Assistant Professor Dr. Navamin Prachanan from Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand.
Yes, and for on-site session room 3, the featured speakers and commentators will be Dr. Eric Mbele from Mahasarakham University, Thailand, Associate Professor Dr. Akrapon Nermaihom from Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. And for on-site session room 4, the featured speakers and commentators will be Assistant Professor Dr. Apisak Sukying from Mahasarakham University, Thailand, Assistant Professor Dr. Surashai Piyanukul from Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. And for poster presentation, the commentators will be Assistant Professor Dr. Kampirapap Intanu and Assistant Professor Supagit Puong from Buriram Ratchapat University, Thailand. And in each room of the presentation, there will be MC and felicitators from Buriram Ratchapat University. Yes, thank you for MC and facilitators on this occasion. Yes.
Yes, and for the online presenters, the certificate will be sent by email from the host, and also for the on-site presenter, the certificate will be presented at the end of each session.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are all the morning session. Now it is a great time for lunch. Are you hungry? Yes. Please be informed that lunches are provided for all presenters and participants beside the conference room. Everyone can have lunch in this room as well. And see you at 1 p.m. at the presentation session. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need somebody who can love me at my worst. No, I'm not perfect, but I hope you see my worth. 'Cause it's only you, nobody knew I put you first. And for you, girl, I swear I do the worst. If you stay forever, let me hold your hand. I can feel those places in your heart, no else can. Let me show you love, oh no, pretend. I'll be right here, baby, you know it's sink or swim. Whoa, don't you worry, I'll be there whenever you want me. I need somebody who can love me at my worst. No, I'm not perfect, but I hope you see my worth. 'Cause it's only you, nobody knew I put you first. And for you, girl, I swear I do the worst. I need somebody who can love me at my worst. No, I'm not perfect, but I hope you see my worth. 'Cause it's only you, nobody knew I put you first. And for you, girl, I swear I do the worst.
Stop the clocks, it's amazing. You should see the way the light dances off your head. Million colors of hazel, golden and red. Saturday morning is fading. The sun's reflected by the coffee in your head. My eyes are caught in your gaze all over again. We were love drunk, waiting on a miracle, trying to find ourselves in the winter snow. So alone in love, like the world had disappeared. I won't be silent and I won't let go. I will hold on tighter till the afterglow. And we'll burn so bright till the darkness softly clears. Oh, I will hold on to the afterglow. Oh, I will hold on to the afterglow. The weather outside's changing. The leaves are buried under 6 inches of white. The radio is playing iron and wine. This is a new dimension. This is a level where we're losing track of time. I'm holding nothing against it except you and I. We were love drunk, waiting on a miracle, trying to find ourselves in the winter snow. So alone in love, like the world had disappeared. Oh, I won't be silent and I won't let go. I will hold on tighter till the afterglow. And we'll burn so bright till the darkness softly clears. Oh, I will hold on to the afterglow.
yours in hand, waiting for me. Every word in poetry won't call me by name, only baby. The more that you give, the less that I need. Everyone says I look happy when it feels right. I know that you're wrong for me. Gonna wish we never met on the day I leave. I brought you down to your knees, 'cause you say the misery loves company. It's not your fault to ruin everything, and it's not your fault I can't be what you need. Baby, and just like you can't fly down here with me. I'm everything they said I would be. La la la. I'm everything they said I would be. I'll put you down slow, love you goodbye before you let go. Just one more time. Take off your clothes, pretend that it's fine. A little more hurt won't kill you tonight. Mama says you don't look happy. Close your eyes. I know that you're wrong for me. Gonna wish we never met on the day I leave. I brought you down to your knees, 'cause you say the misery loves company. It's not your fault to ruin everything, and it's not your fault I can't be what you need. Baby, and just like you can't fly down here with me. I'm everything they said I would be. La 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 la. Wish we never met on the day I leave. I brought you down to your knees, 'cause they say the misery loves company. It's not your fault to ruin everything, and it's not your fault I can't be what you need. Baby, and just like you can't fly down here with me. Oh, angels like you can't fly down here with me.
What you doing? Where you at? Oh, you got plans? Don't say that. I'm sipping wine in a row. I look too good, yeah, to be alone. My house clean, my pool warm. I just shake smooth like a newborn. We should be dancing, romancing in the east wing and the west wing of the mansion. What's happening? I ain't playing no games. Every word that I say is coming straight from the heart. So if you tryna lay in these arms, I'ma leave the door open. I'ma leave the door open. I'ma leave the door open, girl. I'ma leave the door open. That you feel the way I feel, and you want me like I want you tonight, baby. Tell me how you coming through.
I'm on an island, even when you're close. Can't take the silence, I'd rather be alone. I think it's pretty plain and simple. We gave it all we could. we shouldn't say we're good. We're not meant to be like sleeping and cocaine. So let's at least agree to go our separate ways. I'm not gonna judge you when you're with somebody else, long as you sweat. You won't get pissed when I do it myself. Let's end this like we shouldn't say we're good. No need to hide it. Go get what you want. This won't be a burden if we both don't hold a grudge. I think it's pretty plain and simple. We gave it all we could. It's time I say goodbye from the window. Let's end this like we shouldn't say we're good. We're not meant to be like sleeping and cocaine. So let's at least agree to go our separate ways. I'm not gonna judge you when you're with somebody else, long as you sweat. You won't get pissed when I do it myself. Let's end this like we shouldn't say we're good. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way. Cause the drinks bring back all the memories. And the memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember when I didn't know no pain. When I believed in forever and everything would stay the same. Now my heart feel like December when somebody say your name. Cause I can reach out to call you, but I know I will one day. Yeah. Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. Yeah. But everything gonna be alright. Gonna raise a glass and say, yeah. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way. Cause the drinks bring back all the memories. And the memories bring back you. Memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember when I never felt so lost. When I felt alone, the hatred was too powerful to stop. Now my heart feel like a never, and it's lighting on the dark. I carry these torches for you, that you know I'll never drop. Hey. Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. Yeah. But everything will be alright. Gonna raise a glass and say, yeah. Cheers to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way. Cause the drinks bring back all the memories. And the memories bring back you.
Dance with me under the diamond. See me like breath in the cold. Sleep with me here in the silence. Come kiss me silver and gold. You say that I won't lose you, but you can't predict the future. So just hold on like you will never let go. Yeah, if you ever move on without me, I need to make sure you know that you are the only one I've ever loved. Yeah, you. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Looking back on my life, you're the only good I've ever done. Yeah, you. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Not anyone. Forever's not enough time to love you the way that I want. 'Cause every morning I'll find you. I fear the day that I don't. You say that I won't lose you, but you can't predict the future. 'Cause certain things are out of our control. Yeah, if you ever move on without me, I need to make sure you know that you are the only one I've ever loved. Yeah, you. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Looking back on my life, you're the only good I've ever done. I've ever done. Yeah, you. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Not anyone. Not anyone. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Oh, oh. Yeah, you are the only one I'll ever love. Yeah, you. If it's not you, it's not anyone.
It's been so long that I haven't seen